Kendo Podcast episode 171. In this episode, I would like to talk about Midwest Kendo Federation Summer Camp.
Kendo Podcast by Hiro Mafuji from Kendo-Guide.com. Thank you for listening. This podcast is about Japanese martial arts Kendo for Kendo lovers and supported by Kendo enthusiasts through Patreon.com. Thank you for your support, guys. Please visit Kendo-Guide.com for more Kendo information and how to support Kendo-Guide.com.
Welcome to Kendo Podcast episode 171. Yes, okay, before I forget, now you can listen to this Kendo Podcast with Spotify too. So if you are a Spotify lover, you can listen to this podcast as well. So iTunes, you can listen to this podcast from wherever. If you're listening to this iTunes, you can listen to this podcast with iTunes and through my website, kendo-podcast.com. and Spotify and something else too, but I will tell you what it is probably in the next podcast. Okay, now that was great. As usual, this summer camp is held around this time of the year, usually July or August, by Midwest Kendo Federation. Thanks to them, this is very I think I heard that it's been going for almost 15 years. Very well done, and I really appreciate that. Midwest is we don't really have a huge Kendo population like East Coast and West Coast, so this is a great opportunity for us. And then this year, addition to Yamanaka Sensei Hanshi 8th Dan and Saito Sensei Kyoshi 8th Dan, we had excuse me, I'm still struggling with my asthma, so excuse me. Suzuki Sensei, woman sensei, lady sensei, 7th Dan, joined the team. That was great, so we had 3 groups instead of 2 groups as usual. We had a Dan group and Mudansha group, and women group. So that was really great. And I don't really know what they did. Other group, like I was in Dan group, so I don't know what other people did. But usually we start a day with kata in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's great. 6 o'clock kata, everyone wasn't too hungover this year, I think. And I couldn't drink much because I was on steroid and antibiotics. So I didn't drink at all. So it was great. No hangover for me. And kata was great. And you don't get to see these, 8th Dan sensei's kata right in front of your eyes, so that is great. And then we learned some not new things. Kata changes a bit all the time. That's because we have kata committee at All Japan Kendo Federation. I believe, I think they are still there, and they try to interpret what this means. So they change a bit all the time, right? And it is officially said in the instruction book, kata instruction book, this manual is incomplete. So it keeps changing. And it is for us to study the kata. Okay, but anyway, so I'm working on kata, but it's very hard. Concept behind kata is very hard to know because we have no such manual. So I don't think I can complete either. But as much as I can, I try to do my best to help you to understand meaning behind kata and also how we should practice kata. Anyway, So start off with kata every morning and over the weekends, and we do some, basics. Always basics, always base work on basics. So it's very important for us to go over the basics, but don't just go through the motion. The most important thing is, every time you go to the seminar, sensei says Kifon is important. Why is it so important? Because it will help you to improve. If you don't do, like, if you cannot do Kiken Tai Chi, or if you cannot do, it's like Kihon is to make your body, you have to automate your body movements, so you don't have to think. The real kendo starts after your body learned all the movements, so you can strike automatically as soon as you see an opportunity. When you need to, you have to go. So you have to practice like that. You have to train your body so you can go anytime you need to. So that is the main point to practice basics. Now, small basics, big basics as well, right? So big basics, your body actually has to learn. So when you do big basic, one is because we do, kendo is from katana. We use katana big. Of course, small as well, but basic motion, you have to use your shoulders, elbows, wrist. You have to make those joints move. You have to learn how to integrate, how to coordinate, right? So your body will do it without thinking. Now make it smaller. That's applied technique. You're going to make it smaller, so you learned big motions, and now your body knows how you should be moving each joint, so coordinate everything, and then make it smaller. Okay, these are not two different techniques. Okay, so timing is different. Of course, it's smaller. Okay, so you have to. That's what you have to learn. All right. So you do need to learn the timing and everything, but as long as you learn big one, you just have to need adjustment. Okay, you have to need adjust all the timing. Okay, so that's why it's not like no secret there, And Saito Sensei was in charge of the down group, and that again is very, very fortunate to see someone who achieved 8th dan, the highest level of kendo, right in front of you. How he strikes, how they strikes, tenouchi and everything. And like, you really do need to have one or some particular things you want to observe. So if you're like beginner Q level, of course, you don't know what particularly you're looking for, but as you progress, you probably have something always in your mind, like, oh, what should I do with this? How do they strike? How do they use their footwork before they strike? Watch that. Watch those particular things so you can really bring something back with you to your local dojo. And you can practice that, and you can share that with your kendo mates, right? So, just have something in your mind, and then try to figure out how they do it. So there's no particular or special techniques that make you improve super high, improve like all of a sudden. That doesn't work like that. If something changes you big time, I think your kendo should change after each seminar, because you learn something, or you learn same thing over and over and over. That means that is the important points, right? So if these senseis mention the same thing, exactly the same thing, different senseis, over and over, that must be the most important thing in Kendo. You know, not most, I shouldn't say. That very important parts of Kendo, right? So you gotta do it, man. You gotta nail it first, and then you can move on to the next level. Well, it's guaranteed, right? Because everyone says that. Like, for example, when you get into your striking distance, you do not want to move your any feet. Okay, you're striking distance. You should be ready to go. And in one step, one cut, you gotta strike. Okay, sometimes you want to move your left foot. Now, I said want to, but you don't know that. All right, your conscious mind moves your left foot a little bit forward so you feel comfortable. Now, because you don't know what you're doing, you really have to pay attention to what you're doing. Now, I have this, what do you call it? Not custom habit. I have this habit that open my right palm to relax, you know. But Saito Sensei point that out. You're opening your hands. Now, right after that, you know, I close it, and I always focus on it. But you don't want to be told over and over and over, right? Because that means that you're not listening. You're not controlling your body. Okay, so then close it. Next day, okay, he pointed it again. You open. Oh man, I still open it. So you don't really know because it's a part of you, right? That's why it's, you know, videotaping yourself and then realize something is very important. You know, oh, I'm doing that, man. So it's very important to just do it right away. You know, and it's not because opening my hands is very unnecessary movement. Why do I have to do that all the time? It doesn't make sense. You grab your sword, stay there, you know. And by opening, maybe it's a 0.00001 second, I might be delayed, right? So you don't know. Now Kendo, as you progress, you have to scrape off these unnecessary motions. You never know. You know, you never know if that will delay your movements or if that gives you disadvantage. You don't know. But it's unnecessary. You know, why do you do that? If it helps you to relax your right hand, that's good. But you're adding some habits that you don't have to do. So that's why it's very important to just fix it right away. You know, if someone tells you to do this, you fix it right away. You know, it's about you might think, oh, that doesn't make any big difference. Maybe not. You never know until you get to the certain level. You know, but to me, if someone points out something, that means, you know, something that stands out, and that's not necessary. Why do you do something unnecessary? That makes sense to me, you know. And something, you know, grab your sword. I said sword, but shinai too. How you have to grab your shinai. How do you have your feet? How do you have to move? You know, all the informations are there, and 8th Dan Sensei has been gone through what we are going through, right? So they are giving us their experience, which we haven't. Now, we learn something we are not, you know, we haven't experienced, and they are giving that. That's treasure. You know, they're giving us treasure. And why do we just throw it away? You know, so you have to take it and make it your treasure. And you don't have to go through what they have been going through. Of course, sometimes to get it right, you know, sometimes you want to truly understand what they're saying. You have to go through there. If you say, oh, Mount Everest, is it L on R? Man, I still hate this L and R stuff. Japanese people don't have L and R, so after years and Mount Everest. So Everest is same to me. I can pronounce it differently, but I cannot hear the difference. And anyway, so Mount Everest. If we all know Mount Everest is high, but I've never experienced the process, the path, or what's there, right, to get to the top, to peak. So I can say that's high as a knowledge, but I don't know how hard it is to get there. The same thing, you see. So they are telling us, oh, you should be doing this because we're gonna have trouble. So like some experienced climber tell us, oh, you have to prepare this, prepare that. Maybe it's not necessary for you, but they've been there, right? So you better listen to them, otherwise you're gonna die. If you have a slight possibility that you might die, you probably listen to them, right? So I think that's how Kendo techniques was passed on to the next generations, because someone who lived a battle or battles, they pass those techniques on to the next generation so they can survive. In my opinion, I don't know how it works, but anyway, so you better listen to them, and then bad habits should go away right away, and you have to keep yourself in mind, like me driving left hand, right hand of the road. Japan and America, they have different, they drive on a different side of the road, so I have to keep reminding myself, okay, on the left. I have to drive on the left. In Japan, here in the US, I know right on the right. I don't have to keep reminding me, but at the very beginning, until automatically I can drive on the right side, I had to keep reminding myself, oh, I have to drive on the right side. It still make a mistake, I did make a mistake. I did make a mistake actually, but that happens. So, just what you have to do to remove bad habits and add good habits. Kendo, this learning process is just about that. Getting good information and removing bad habits, and then adding good habits. So a lot of people work on the different things, but we are working on the same thing. Kendo basics. This is supposed to be we should be doing this. We're supposed to do this. We're supposed to do that. And then once your body moves automatically, now it's about semi. Now it's about when to strike. It's more complicated mind game part. How to strike, unless you want to be like, super athlete like All Japan, world class athlete, Kendoist, that'll do, And then if you want to be world class athlete, you really have to train harder, right? And harder and harder and harder. But otherwise, if you want to enjoy Kendo, just do the right thing, remove bad habits, listen to your sensei. That is the most important thing. Personally, I learned very important thing: relax. And the other one is, don't try to strike. Don't even think about, what your opponents will do. You get into your striking distance. When you think you have to strike, you strike. It doesn't matter what your opponents do. I've been telling my students, and sometimes you get there because through practicing. Okay, so I realized it because how the Saito sensei was striking, and I was doing that, and I just felt the difference between how I have been striking and how he strikes. And you gotta try that, right? You gotta try that in training and jigeko and everywhere. And then I realized, oh, I have been thinking about striking my opponent too much. So my body is not actually working properly. It's funny though, right? It's funny. Kendo is to strike your opponent. But after all, I realized it is not. You do strike when it's necessary. You don't strike when you don't think it's necessary, right? But if you think, oh, I have to strike and I don't want to get hit, and then that will delay your, that will make your kendo slow and tough and solid. So after all, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Very funny, right? Very, very interesting. So that's my realization, and then something was like my unnecessary thoughts was removed through this seminar. So it was a plus, right? So I think you know everything, probably. Your teacher tells you over and over and over, and as knowledge, it's in your head. But you gotta realize sometimes, you gotta realize, oh, okay, I wasn't doing actually what I was supposed to do. This realization is the treasure. You found it. You found the treasure by yourself. Of course, you have a map. You have a map. Teacher gives you a map, but you found it yourself, and it stays there. Now, like I said, sensei gives you treasure, but sometimes you don't value it because they are given, right? But if you value it and listen to it, do what they say, that's yours too. That will become yours. Excuse me. So, when not only seminars, okay, a daily practice, when you're given some treasure, take it, make it yours. Go to a seminar, they'll give you treasure, and take it, make it yours. And they might give you a new map, take it, and walk through the map. And sometimes you find treasure by yourself. Maybe the same treasure that you've been given by many senseis, but you found it finally, so it will be yours. Now, whatever the path however you found it, well, however you are given, their treasure. Take it, keep it. One day, maybe you'll realize how valuable those treasures were. Okay, treasures are. So that's the path. That's the process. Unfortunately, that's the process of Kendo. Okay, and we can improve our Kendo and our personality, hopefully, through the process. Okay, thank you for listening again. This podcast is available at iTunes and Spotify and Kendo-Guide. No, KendoPodcast.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast. I would like to send special thanks to patrons for their constant support through patreons.com/KendoForLife.